Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you're probably wondering about this particular setup right here with all these VHSs, with the shit in the background. Well, having shit like that in the background is a normal thing, but you're probably wondering about all this. Well, guess what? Since it's that time of the year where everybody's showing their collection of Blu-rays, because Blu-rays is the hit thing, having 4K DVDs, platinum DVDs, gold DVDs, silver DVDs, bronze DVDs, porno DVDs, and all that other stuff with high quality 1080p, 4K, 720, or whatever the fuck qualities are out there, because everybody's all into the visual presentation. Well, guess what? In my room, that shit's not acceptable in my room. In here, in this particular spot right here, when you people are watching this particular page, I don't do Blu-rays, I don't do 4K, I don't do silver, platinum, and all that other stuff. What I do is old school. Because on the Mr. Garrison film page, we go old school. We go fucking old school. So for that matter, I'm going to show you all my VHSs as of this particular year and go around from there within an update. So, I'm not supposed to be yelling such because I got a stomach bug right now, but you know what? I'm going to go through all my VHSs as fast as I can. Not in really any particular order because, let's just say, I do not have a big shelf. As you clearly can see right here, full of a lot of movies I try to keep in alphabetical order, but right now, I want to make some room in my room and hopefully build myself a shelf for my movies. So ladies and gentlemen, as of right now I'm going to show you all my VHS tapes as of right now. So here we begin with our first one. We got Ace Ventura, the Pet Detective. Funny ass movie, definitely an underrated gem to say the least. Next up we got here is some Mike Myers, Austin Powers. I was never really crazy about Austin Powers in general, but you know what? Might have to give the movie a rewatch and see how I really feel about it. Oh, by the way, fook you and fook me. Fook thy and fook off. There you go. Next up we got here, I'm going to show you all of them just in this particular order. We got Back to the Future, a fucking classic 6 out of 5 masterpiece. Back to the Future Part 2, which is definitely one of the best sequels out there. And for me, this one a lot of people don't care about. For me, I actually thought it was a nice film. Back to the Future 3. Back to the Future 3, honestly, I thought it was a nice little concept going back to the West. I like that a lot. Next up, you never really see superhero films in my particular catalog, but for this one I got it. Because knowing me, I collect, majority of the stuff I have is 80s. So for this particular case, we have Batman with Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson. The movie of the decade said Eric Spermger, whatever the hell his name is. So there we go. By the way, thanks to Prince for doing the soundtrack. Next up, speaking of Michael Keaton talking about some more, we got Beetlejuice. Well, definitely a fun film to watch around Halloween. Next up we got here is a personal favorite of mine, one of my all-time favorite Tom Hanks performances, where he plays in Big. Have you ever had a really big secret? Yes, I have. You want to know one thing about this movie? And I did the... Okay, let me give you all a funny story about this film, especially at work and such. One of my first paychecks I got, it was like 400 something. I literally screamed in the car when I picked it up. I said, $490 some dollars! And when I went to the bank to cash in, I literally said to the banker, I want 10s, 5s, 1s, and all that other stuff. I can't remember exactly what I said, but I tried to re-say the exact same way it was said in Big, but that was a fail. Also, another thing about the movie that's fucking funny is that fucking Tom Hanks and his little buddy are at the ice cream parlor. And fucking Tom Hanks eating ice cream like, nah, 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 nah. Yeah, take fucking pictures of that, shall ya? So he's eating fucking ice cream with his little buddy, and his buddy's looking like, what the fuck's wrong with you? So there you go. That's big. Next up, oh God. Oh God. Don't get me started with this one right here, because do I have to? Let's change shirts real quick. There we go. Big Trouble in Little fucking China, my friends. One of my all-time personal favorites. My number 2 favorite movie of all time. Not in best, but in favorite. Fucking love. I think everybody knows how I feel about it, so I don't even need to bother explaining it. So let's go ahead and change back shirts. Not the shirt I was expecting to put on, but you know what? Hey, I'll take it. Alright, next up we got here my all-time favorite movie ever, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. If you know me personally, I don't even need to say anything. Now this one, a lot of people don't care for it, but for me, it is actually a guilty pleasure of mine because I'm a big Bill and Ted nut hugger. And that is Bogus Journey. It is fun, not gonna lie on that. Next up is one of the greatest comedies that's ever been made, and this film definitely truly represents spoof comedies and parodies at himself even. Mel Brooks is Blazing Saddles. The sheriff saw! Exactly. Next up we got here, we're going to go back to the early 30s. We're going to talk about a sequel known as The Bride of Frankenstein right here. Boris Karloff is back in this film to continue on his role, but this time he's got a little honey with him. Nice. Next up we got here Jim Carrey and Bruce Almighty. The same guy who did Liar Liar, and that was a funny film. And this one right here is actually an underrated film, to say the least. It was pretty nice. Next up we got here is one of the greatest westerns that's ever been made, with guys like Paul Newman, Robert Redford, and Catherine Ross. That is none other than Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Next up, we're going to continue going old school just for a little bit. A fun musical with Janet Leigh and Dick Van Dyke and Margaret. Some big popular names like Bobby Rydell, Ed Sullivan, and Jesse Person. This is a really fun musical. That is Bye Bye Birdie. Definitely one of the best musicals out there. I think there was a film satire off of Damn Yankees. That I don't know. Well, that's that. Alright, next one we got here. Let's get right down to one of the greatest movies ever made that really hits you hard. The best Hollywood movie of all time. Well, it depends who you're talking to, but it's definitely one of them. Casablanca. Next up, we got some Chitty Chitty Bang Bang Shitty Shitty Fuck You. Now next up we got here is one of the greatest Christmas stories of all time, and I believe everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. This is arguably the best Christmas movie ever made, and that is A Christmas Story. Oh, fudge! Next up we got here is a Stanley Kubrick gem, best film of the year, best director of the year, and so on and so forth. A sick twisted film, but it's done right from the mind of a guy like Stanley Kubrick, and that is none other than A Clockwork Orange. Twisted ass movie, but it's fucking brilliant. Next up we got here, the box is a little beat up, but I do have this film. I thought this film was okay. Not one of the best, but it's alright. Cocktail. Next up we got here in my little catalog is another one of the greatest movies ever made, and this one right here is a Steven Spielberg gem, and I can tell you right now, it is one of my all-time favorite coming-of-age stories, and that is The Color Purple. Two greatest debut performances ever in film, Whoopi Goldberg and Oprah Winfrey. Wonderful stuff. Next up, we got the movie star Mr. L.C. Muscles. That is him right here, the creature from the Black Lagoon. Definitely a classic gem from the 1950s. Yeah, you can see Lucas right there and how he is on a Monday. So there you go with that. Alright, next up we got here, I'm going to bend my back a little bit. This is one of my all-time favorite horror films, and we're going to get into one of my favorite personal directors, and that is John Carpenter, and that is Christine. Surprisingly, I actually happen to have a toy replica car almost surrounding it, but it's not it. But we got Christine. Good stuff, man. Alright, next up we got here, you know what? I'll show this one. We got a Jim Henson film. Now, this is supposed to be a lovely film, but it has a lot of monsters, and this was like the original Avatar before Avatar was around. That is Jim Henson's The Dark Crystal. Puppeteers coming alive, surrounding different monsters and all that other bullshit. Crazy-ass movie with trying to be a kid-friendly-ish stuff. There you go, Dark Crystal. Next up is one of my favorite Kevin Costner films, and he is definitely was a gem to watch. Winner of 7 Academy Awards, include Best Picture, Best Director, Cinematography, Screenplay, Original Score, blah blah blah, all that bullshit. And that is none other than Dances with Wolves. A long ass movie, but it's definitely well worth a good watch. Next up, yippee-ki-yay motherfucker, and that is Die Hard. Alright, continuing on, people say, this is definitely a prize gem that everyone loves when it comes to Patrick Swayze. This is one of my favorites, but it's not my personal favorite, which I'll get to in a bit. Don't put Baby in the Corner, my friends, because we're going to do a little dirty dance, and I've had the time of my life. And she's like the wind. Alright, next up we got here, this is a film, I don't know why the fuck I have it in the first place, I'm just going to show it and put it back, and that is a film called Dragonheart. I heard this film was pretty shitty, I don't think I'm going to watch it, I just got it for the collection. Alright, next up we got here, we're going to get into some really good shit going on. Another Steven Spielberg classic, and this is one of his prized gems out there, a masterpiece of stories that touched the world. It touched me alright. That is none other than E.T.'s Extra Testicle, the E.T. Extraterrestrial. One of the greatest stories ever told, and it's still heartbreaking when Elliot and E.T. just break when E.T. goes back to where he belongs. I was wrong. This is what Lucas looks like on a fucking Monday morning. God damn. Next up, we're going to get into some more coming of age and one of the most iconic pieces out there that is just a fun, feel-good film. You all know the name, Matthew Broderick and John Hughes? Yeah. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Ferris Bueller, you're my hero. So there we go. One of the most memorable films out there. Definitely with some of the most memorable quotes. And a fun, feel-good movie. Love it. Next up we got here, You Can't Handle the Truth. You all know what I mean. A Feel-Good Men. This arguably, you can say, is one of Tom Cruise's best performances, along with Born the 4th of July, The Last Samurai, the Mission Impossible films. Well, I'm not going to say Risky Business, but I'm just naming some Tom Cruise films out there. But you can say Born the 4th of July and or Last Samurai is his best performance. This is definitely one of his. Same with Jack Nicholson and Demi Moore. Great shit. Next up we got here is a film that has it all, and this one, let me tell you right now, it has everything you love in a movie. It has romance, it has comedy, it has action, it has psychological horror if you see the movie well. It also has adventure. It has a story that will make you laugh. It'll make you cry. It'll make you scared. It has everything, and it's a movie that you can say that defines the word movie well, and that is Forrest Gump. Next up we got here is, since we talked about the Bride of Frankenstein, let's talk about the original in the classic horror collection, Boris Karloff in Frankenstein. Next up, This is one of those films in the Stanley Kubrick collection that you can say is the most memorable, the most quoted out of any film in history. And he definitely is stupid. Stanley Kubrick is a guy who had the balls to give the nationality of Asians a stereotype. Full Metal Jacket. Also, question out there for everybody. Please put in the comment section. The peace sign in Born to Kill on Joker's helmet. In your mind, what did that mean of what Stanley Kubrick was trying to discuss when Joker's helmet had the peace button and the Born to Kill written on it? Let me know in the comments down below what you think that meant to you. Next up, Brendan Fraser, the ridiculous guilty pleasure of mine known as George of the Jungle. Next up we got here, we're going to stick with the original, and that's it. Ghostbusters. God bless Harold Ramis. Alright, next one we got here is one of the greatest war movies ever made, and definitely you can say is Matthew Broderick's best performance. And guys like him, Denzel Washington, Cary Elwes, and Morgan Freeman, what a cast, what a movie. We're talking about some glory. Next up we got here is a film that is Academy Award winner. Again, Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, God bless Robin Williams. We got some Good Will Hunting. Next up is another musical that you can say, oh, it doesn't have a story to it, but it actually somewhat does if you just watch the movie well. And it is a lot of fun. We're talking about some Grease. And next up, adding up to Grease, is the sequel to the film that was quite unnecessary, but I got in my stash anyway, and that is Grease 2. Not gonna lie, the soundtrack for this movie isn't that bad. Not the greatest, but it's alright. Next up, John Carpenter. I fucking love this guy so much. I'm proud to have a lot of his movies in my stash, and I'm sure as hell proud to have the original Halloween. Amazing shit. Alright, next up we got here, oh Christ, I'm just going to show the two right here. Two films that you can watch on Christmas every year, and that is Home Alone and Home Alone 2. And yes, I actually do like Lost in New York. Alright, next up, this is a film where people are going to get on my ass for having, but the thing is, I like this movie. I actually liked it because it was a nice what-if situation of what if, be like if Peter Pan was an adult. I like this. And that is Hook. You can say it's a terrible movie. You can say it was pretty shitty. But you know what? I liked it. I thought it had a nice visual presentation of nice landscape, nice scenery. Robin Williams playing as the adult Peter Pan. Giving you that what-if situation if Peter Pan grew up and got away from Neverland, trying to discover himself. I actually thought it was a nice little tale, and I did like this film. Next up, we got some horror vintage shit right here, and there's one movie that I fucking love to pieces, another one I haven't even watched yet. We got The Invisible Man, one of my personal favorite classic horror films. Love the hell out of it. Now this one I haven't seen, but looking at this, it surrounds a fucking octopus. It came from beneath the sea. I think I'm going to give this a watch. Because it seems like it's surrounding a big-ass octopus. Alright, next up is one of the best sports movies ever. This film was just touching to watch. And that is Jerry Maguire. Such a touching movie. Alright, next up, I'm not going to go, like I said, I'm not going to go in any order here. So with the ones that are stacked up here, I'm going to go over those real quick. Next up we got here is some Dick Tracy. I have not watched this one yet, nor even got it out of the wrapper. Besides that. Next up, John Carpenter, man. I just go on talking about him. We got Escape from New York. Fuck the idea of Escape from LA. That does not exist. At least in my eyes, it doesn't exist. Next up, I did like this one. Because I thought it was an interesting concept. The original Friday the 13th. Next up we got here is one of my all-time favorite horror movies. This was originally my first, but now it is my second favorite horror movie of all time. And that is none other than A Nightmare on Elm Street, one of the most creative and genius films I have ever seen in terms of horror. Now, I'll get into the talk about Patrick Swayze, that this is that Dirty Dancing is his best film. Wrong in my book. This is, to me, his best performance, where he played in Point Break. Next up we got here is definitely one of Quentin Tarantino's best movies he's ever done, and a gem worth watching, and that is none other than Pulp Fiction. And if you're wondering what was in the briefcase, it was the soul of Marcellus Wallace. I drew a blank there for a moment, but I got it. Next up, Revenge of the Nerds. The nerds taking the beauties away from the stereotypes of the jocks. Now, this is a movie that really defines what a stereotype is. Nerds! Next up we got here, you can say this is Al Pacino's best performance he's ever done in the movie. This one's a 2-box set, 2 VHSs. We got some Scarface here, my friends. The world is like a great big pussy, waiting to get fucked. Next up is another coming of age film that I think is a personal classic. That is Stand By Me. Going on here. Boom shakalaka laka, boom shakalaka laka, boom shakalaka laka, boom. We got some razzle dazzle stripes. And last but certainly not least is a gem in the film industry world that you can say is a cinematic achievement between both the writing, directing, the concept, the whole script alone. It is ingenious. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Next up we got here for our films is another film I not even watched yet, but I might check it out whenever I feel like it. That is Michael Keaton in Johnny Dangerously. You know what he looks like? He looks like if Bond had a cousin. James Bond had a cousin. Next up is a classic in the Robin Williams catalog, where a board game comes to life, and that is Jumanji. Alright, continuing on with Steven Spielberg, my friends, is a classic one surrounding what it's like if dinosaurs were to come to life in Jurassic Park. Now, with this movie here, I'm just going to pretend this sequel does not exist. I'm just going to keep it with the first one, and only the first one. Minus Jurassic World, or Jurassic, whatever that one is at present time. Next up we got here is a movie nobody's probably ever heard of, but I know it. It's a film called K-9, surrounding James Belushi. Continuing on here, my friends, is one of the greatest films of all time. Gregory Peck is one of the most memorable performances as Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird. Another one that defines what a movie is like. Alright, continuing on with our horror genre, we got some Bela Lugosi for you all, where he plays in a movie called Killer Bats. Never seen it. I'll probably watch it whenever I feel like it. Alright, with these ones here, I'm just going to go rapid speed. I'm just going to go rapid speed with these particular ones here. Because, let me just say this right now. I got them just to complete my stash. But continuing on here, we have another one of my all-time personal favorites. We got The Karate Kid. We got The Karate Kid Part 2. And The Karate Kid Part 3. So, that's that. Never really was a fan of the sequels, but I got them anyway, just for the sake of the collection. We ain't gonna have the new Karate Kid. We're gonna pretend that one doesn't exist. Alright, next up we got here is a comedy that is pretty funny to say the least, and that is some Liar Liar. Alright, next up is, to me, my all-time favorite musical, and a true gem that I personally, on a legit personal note, I can relate to. That is the 1986 musical adaptation from the original 60s of Little Shop of Horrors. Next up we got here is one of my favorite films surrounding vampires in the 1980s. That is none other than The Lost Boys. Continuing on here with some more Jim Carrey and some crazy shit here. Now this one, the original comic book, he was a sadistic fuck, but for this particular one, not really. And that is none other than Jim Carrey in The Mask. P-A-R-T. Why? Because I gotta. Next up is we got some Rob Reiner free wall. And for this Rob Reiner gem that I have, we are surrounding some Misery free wall. Kathy Bates, who won the Oscar for Best Actress in 1990, and it truly was a well-deserved performance. James Caan, same deal. Next up is a Robin Williams classic. Again, I know I've been saying that a lot because it's true, but this personally isn't one of my favorites. But it was a nice little watch. Mrs. Doubtfire. Next up, some more Bela Lugosi for you all. Excuse me, Boris Karloff, I lied. Where he played in The Mummy. Not those Brendan Fraser movies, that sucked. Next up, we got here. Let's talk about some more Jim Henson, shall we? I got the Muppet movie, not the live not the 2000 and whatever it was, the original 1970s one, the Muppet movie, how the Muppets became to be. All right, this is another film where you truly should not believe the sequels exist at all, because they don't in my book. But this one right here is a standalone, brilliant movie, and it's beautiful. The Never-Ending Story. Next up, now this one I put in the end section because of the title. But we got some Cheech and Chong. Now, all their movies, on a perspective of being objective, all their movies suck. But when it comes to subjectiveness and a fan perspective, the movies are guilty pleasures to watch. We got some Cheech and Chong's next movie. You all know Up in Smoke. That one's a true guilty pleasure right there. Next up is a gem in the horror realm, and this here is a pioneer, and oh my god, it's well worth a watch, and that is some Nosferatu. This film can really give you the chills. It gave me the chills. Okay, next up we got here is Jack Nicholson in one of the greatest adaptations of a book, and that is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Speaking of adaptations with books, we got another one here. Now, this is not the director's cut, the full length, all the deleted scenes. This is the shorter version, which I'm not proud of, because I want the director's cut where it shows more scenes. The Outsiders. Next up is one of the greatest Thanksgiving movies ever, if not the greatest Thanksgiving movie, and that is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Alright. I know I say alright a lot. Don't need to, tell me. We got some Phantom of the Rue Morgue. Never seen this one, but, still, it is interesting. Came with a bundle of those horror movies I showed in a VHS update. Next up we got here is one of the greatest, I wouldn't say one of the greatest, but definitely one of the funniest comedies out there, and I see titties, and I see Michael Winslow doing his thing. We got some Police Academy. This film was brilliant because of Michael Winslow. Okay. I have to show this one because it's a personal favorite of mine. And it's my all-time favorite coming-of-age movie. It is Pretty in Pink. I don't even need to describe my love for this movie. I really don't. If you know me personally, you should know. Speaking of the word pretty, we got Pretty Woman next. Pretty woman walking down the street, pretty woman. The VHS print is pink. I'm not singing no more. Next up we got here is another Rob Reiner classic, and it's a personal gem to me. That is The Princess Bride. Okay, I'm going to show these two side by side. I'm surprised I don't have the other ones to complete the whole series, but we got Rocky 4 and Rocky 5. I don't have Rockies 1, 2, or 3, but I'm going to have to get them just to complete this whole VHS deal with Rocky. Next up we got here is a movie where one of the greatest soundtracks was ever written that helped get the Bee Gees back up to where they belong. We got some Saturday Night Fever. Next up is one of the greatest war movies ever told, if not the greatest, and I choose this over Full Metal Jacket, honestly, and that is Saving Private Ryan. Next up we got here is another film I gave one of my rare 6 out of 5s to, and I'm not a fan of Richard Linklater at all, but for this one, he made a personal gem that I absolutely loved. Because I can relate to it 100%. Your real homework is music. Listen to real music. That is School of Rock. Okay, continuing on here, we got some more Stanley Kubrick's. The VHS is a little busted, but I'm sure it'll work once I pop it in. The Shining. I don't even need to say a word. The Shining's enough. Next up is another one of the greatest musicals of all time, with a cast unlike anything, with Gene Kelly, Donald O'Connor, Debbie Reynolds, in Singing in the Rain. Okay, along with Forrest Gump, this is another 6 out of 5 I gave to The Shawshank Redemption. Pictures like that I don't even need to explain because they're self-explanatory if you've seen them. Alright, next up now, even though I said Nightmare on Elm Street is my all-time favorite horror film, no, excuse me. This is my all-time favorite horror movie. The Silence of the Lambs. Given the true vibe of what psychological horror and what it's like dealing with a monster is like. Okay, we got another romance film that is a very adorable, fun watch. One thing I love about this movie, Splash, is where Tom Hanks, he gets laid with fucking Daryl Hannah. He gets fucking laid with her, and he comes into work next day. He's juggling fruit, kissing his fucking coworkers, he's singing zippity doo dah, zippity. He's just fucking all happy because he got himself laid. Man, if I ever got myself an Asian woman that happened to me, I'd be going into work the next day fucking singing and juggling the products and stuff and just be all joyful. Okay, we got some live adaptations here with some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles the movie, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. Ooze! Alright. Next picture here. I don't have the first one, but I soon will get it. To me, one of the best sequels ever made. Terminator 2, Judgment Day. Okay. Next up is one of another rare 6 out of 5 I've given to, and this one here, let's just say Tom Hanks did amazing directing it, and that is That Thing You Do. Next up we got here is my favorite John Carpenter movie that he's done, at least in the horror realm, my second favorite, and that is The Thing. Continuing on here, this is another guilty pleasure of mine, but for this, the reason why it was funny is because of the man alone, God bless his soul, Chris Farley. That is Tommy Boy. The movie is terrible, yes, but again, it's funny because of Chris Farley. Alright, continuing on. Take a drink how many times I say alright. We got some more Tom Cruise where he plays in a film known as Top Gun. A sequel is not necessary for this movie. It was great as its standalone. Next up is a film that is fun to watch and it also makes you cry because that ending, but it does pick up. We got some Turner and Hooch. It is a fun movie to watch. Fun movie. Okay, next up we got here. It is my all-time favorite mafia movie. Now, when it comes to film, one of my all-time favorite genres in movie is mafia. I love gangster films. Those old gangster films like The Godfather, Once Upon a Time in America, also that Netflix show, Boardwalk Empire. I fucking love the hell of that program. But this one here is my all-time favorite one. Hollywood's adaptation of The Untouchables. And last I mentioned Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke. Yeah, I have that too. So there you go with that. Alright, continuing on here, we're almost finished. Next up we got here is some, what is this one? This here is a horror movie called Vampire Bat. Never seen it, never heard of it, but I got it. Next up is a film where I would actually not mind seeing a remake in present times because it would be interesting. But still, I love the original regardless, and that is Warriors Come Out to Play! Next up is another film from the category of Saturday Night Live. But by the way, I do happen to have the Blues Brothers on VHS, but I don't know where I seem to put that tape. Somewhere around here. But next up is another one of the greatest live adaptations of Saturday Night Live sketch, and that is Wayne's World. By the way, A Night at the Roxbury sucked. Last two VHS I got here is another musical classic, Oscar winner for Best Picture in 1981. That is West Side Story. And last is a parody of Frankenstein, where Gene Wilder, God bless his soul, in Young Frankenstein. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is all my VHSs I've showcased to you all. I'm sure this fucking video is a long-ass thing, but you know what? It'll be well worth the watch. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I hope you all enjoyed this. Let me know down below, what do you like to collect? VHSs, DVDs, Blu-rays, the vinyl records of film, the laser discs, soundtracks, you name it. Anything that you love collecting when it comes to film, let me know down below. Speaking of that, I would love to own those big laser discs sometime and watch them. That'd be interesting. Ciao for now.